Hi, everybody. My name is Carolyn Shomley. I'm the Community Manager for the Professionals for Association Revenue, and this is part of our PAR webcast series. Today's webcast is called The Impact of Value Proposition, and we are so glad that you're here with us today. As you see, Sylvia and Sean are on screen with us. I will introduce them in just a moment, but first, who is PAR? Well, that's us. We're a wonderful organization, and if you're with us today, you know a little bit about us, but we're creating a community of revenue producers. Our goal is to provide a community with the network, the resources, the ideas that we all need so much right now. We know it's been a challenging year for everyone because we've experienced those challenges as well. So that's what PAR is all about, is building that community, sharing resources together. So thank you for joining us today. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. You can also join us on our website by visiting mypar.org today. So who are we and why are we here? Well, we have two great presenters with us today. They are both very passionate about the value that associations can bring to their members, their industries, and their partners. First up, we have Sylvia Goner. Sylvia is a certified association executive. She's a consultant, a speaker, author, and trainer specialized in international management and cross-cultural relations. Throughout her 30-year career, Sylvia has served as an executive in several global organizations. She has a solid track record of leading international growth strategies, driving revenue in a global marketplace, and spearheading innovative global operating models. Simply put, Sylvia knows the role that value proposition plays in her clients' success. Hey, Sylvia, how are you doing today? Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to the next hour on this really cool topic.
Perfect. And Sean Soth is joining us as well. Sean Soth is the founder and board chair for the Professionals for Association Revenue. As a recognized business development expert, Sean has led multiple sales portfolios in a variety of industries, including life sciences, legal, government, contracting, association management, training and development, and healthcare. During the last year in particular, Sean's team has been responsible for launching new programs and products for their clients, and they focus all of their work on value. So Sean is a great addition to this conversation. Sean, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Carolyn and Sylvia, and hello, everyone.
And for all of you following along with our slides, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see our agenda for today. So that's how you can follow along, see what we're talking about currently, and what will be coming up next. All right, so as always, we love interactive chats. So for those of you joining us, if you could just chat with us today throughout. You know, Sean and Sylvia are experts on this topic, but we know you all have great things to contribute as well. So if we could just start it off by opening your chat icon at the bottom of your screen and chat to us by telling us what your own value proposition is. We'd love to hear from you. And go ahead and send those chats. And I know, Sean, you also have something to chat out to everyone, a resource to chat to our group today.
I sure do, everybody. So one of the things that we learned from our first few webcasts was a place to take notes and guide along the conversation. Sylvia has some amazing takeaways that she's going to share with us today. And we've developed a quick worksheet to help you walk through today's webcast. If you just click on the link in the chat box that I've just shared, and if you don't have your chat box open, just mouse over the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, hit that little text bubble that says chat, and you'll see all the upcoming, all the chats that we have for today. The last one has a little bit about the worksheet. So go ahead and click on that. It'll open it. I know it's hard to type and listen and learn, but this way you've got it and something you can reference after the fact as well.
Great. Follow along with us. All right. So without further ado, let's get going. We're talking value proposition, and before we even discuss it, let's talk about why this is something we're talking about, why it's so important for associations right now. Sylvia, let's start with you. Why do associations need a well-defined value proposition, particularly now, more than ever before?
Sure, Caroline. Well, a value proposition, it really offers tremendous benefits, and it can really have an impact on the bottom line. And too often the value proposition is either missing or it's outdated in our organization. So even before the pandemic, a lot of associations were feeling the effects of a lot of external forces on their business, whether it's digital transformation, whether it's the generational changes in their memberships, maybe the expectations of more customized and more personalized communications and services from our members, maybe the increased competition, obviously, from the service providers out there. And so that was the situation. And then since the pandemic, we have a new reality. And this has created for a lot of associations a need to re-examine our goals, our objectives. The new conditions that we have right now force a lot of organizations to update their strategic plan. So it's a perfect time to also look at the value proposition. And anytime you have sort of the significant changes, whether they're internal or external, going on into the business that you're in, it's important to review your value proposition. Well, that's if you have one, right? As we'll talk, many associations don't have a value proposition, or at least not one that is clearly spelled out, that's up to date, and that's used effectively throughout the organization.
And Sean, you've, as we mentioned in your bio, you've worked with several different types of association clients through the years. How have you seen value proposition shape their work, particularly, again, in this last year?
Well, I think for revenue producers, particularly the sales teams of the folks on the line today and listening on the archive, it's really about helping us frame what the value means for both membership and partner programs. Through the pandemic, I would say that it's been crucial to help sales teams navigate changing product portfolios and new challenges that maybe have just completely disrupted our normal way of operations. It's how we present our association's why to the market we're serving, and how that why informs why members join, why you would consider investing, all of those things. So value proposition continues to be super important. And excuse me, through the pandemic, as we've all sort of transitioned to this new environment of selling virtually, one of the things that we polled our members on just last month, we had a month dedicated to sales skills. 45% of respondents said the number one most important sales skill right now for association revenue producers was the way we present value. And so that might be in the way we present value through materials or just a conversation. So value proposition is really that key success factor to kind of be the building block for everything that we do.
All right, so we know that it matters, but as Sylvia mentioned, there's organizations out there that don't even have one, or maybe they don't know exactly what it is. So let's talk about that a little bit. What exactly is a value proposition? How would you define it to someone who is interested in coming up with one of their own?
Sure. It's really very unique to each organization. So you can look at examples out there, but it's not something you cut and paste. You really have to craft your own, and it must be carefully crafted. It's something that you do not do, quickly and casually. And as mentioned, it must be relevant to the current environment. That's really critical. So value is defined as the benefits and the solutions that people can expect from joining or from partnering with you. So for example, value can include what is unique about your company and the benefits that you offer as compared to your competitors. If you want to focus on what's unique, for example, everybody's offering training, but what distinguishes yours? Maybe it's accredited. Maybe it's because you vetted your training to reflect the standards in your industry, or maybe all of your presenters are certified. That is how you can maybe distinguish yourself to show that you are unique. Value also covers how people benefit from joining your community, how you help members find the solutions they need the most, and as Sean mentioned, how you help your partners, your vendors, sponsors, your advertisers meet their most pressing needs. That's value. And then you have the proposition part, which really captures the commitment of the organization to deliver on its promise. This is where you can highlight sort of your values, not value, but your values, the standards that you guarantee, that your customers can count on, whether it's quality, whether it's quantity, whether it's timeliness or reliability. So that's what defines a value proposition.
And I would add to some of the things that Sylvia just shared and just say, you know, how are our value propositions informing our outreach and our opportunities right now? So just for those of you who are watching the chat board, you know, have you had to adjust the way you're presenting value to your customers? I think most of us would say absolutely, for better or for worse. So I think it all sort of starts with our ability to always kind of frame up with this value proposition.
All right, so let's get some more interaction from our attendees today, and we have a poll for everyone. I'll go ahead and launch this. So what is the state of your value proposition? And so our options here are active, it's essential to what you're doing, it's evolving, maybe it's something that you're revisiting, it's out of date, no longer relevant in 2021, or maybe for you it's unclear, even what it is, if you have one. And so just go ahead and vote for those. Again, these are anonymous, so your name is not attached to it, but it'll help us with our discussion and kind of give everyone an idea of the state of each of our associations and where we are in this. So I see some votes coming in, and I'll give just another minute here before I go ahead and share those results. All right, so here we go. All right, Sean, Sylvia, seeing the results there. So it looks like about 27% are saying that it's active. A large majority of you, 55%, are saying that it's evolving. And then a few of you say out of date as well as unclear as to what it is. So certainly helps frame this conversation as to what Sean and Sylvia are saying. All right, so moving on here, as far as the value proposition and who it serves, you know, associations are made up of many different parts. So Sylvia, how does the value proposition change depending on who it serves within an association?
Absolutely. You know, it's helpful to think about your audience and start there and to group them into buckets. So here we have grouped maybe members together because you might have different tiers of members. And if you think about the needs of your audience, maybe the needs of your students are going to be different than your full members. If you think about your partners, again, they're going to be coming into this with a different position entirely. And too often, I think associations forget about their non-member base, right? You know, how do you speak to the non-member? That's often a missing strategy. Yet it's a really critical one. And you may want to think about the value proposition for those people that aren't already bought into the organization. But it's particularly important in an international environment because what we notice is that if you're expanding internationally, too often those individuals may never join the organization. They may never become members, whatever reason. Maybe the culture is different, maybe the employers don't cover membership. But they are consumers and they will come to your conferences, they will attend your webcasts, they will sign into your certification. So it's important to think about these buckets in terms of who is the value proposition serving. So you could have multiple value propositions according to those particular audiences.
And Sean, in terms of value proposition and who it serves, why does that matter so much to the revenue producers that you work so closely with?
Well, whether I think Sylvia's done a great job of framing out the three main buckets that we all have, and you also have maybe in the non-member category becoming increasingly important are these influencers. But for folks on the front line with revenue, I think it matters because value proposition is really connected to outcomes. The outcomes, whether they're perceived by our customers or strategically planned by members or customers on what the outcome will be. Should I join? Should I invest? And for sales teams, it can be how we're evaluated, whether that's fair or unfair. I think basic human nature really too is to establish complex layers of value. preparing for today, I was kind of thinking, what are some of the types of folks that I like to transact with? It could be maybe not, how they always say, it might not be the least expensive options. It's not just about price. It's really about how that outcome serves me or my organization. If I am a member, does your value proposition communicate to me for personal growth or team growth? If I am a business partner or an exhibitor, does the pivot you've made during the pandemic really speak to me? Is it something that I can align with and kind of match with my strategy moving forward? This is why some of the pivots we've all made over the last few months, some have had marginal levels of success, and a lot have had what I would call some areas of need and improvement. We've all learned from it. That's strategically valuable. However, I think that for our customers that we're working with, understanding where the value helps them meet their perceived outcomes is really what it's about.
All right, so we've spoke about why it matters, who it serves. Now let's talk about some of the mistakes that we make. Sylvia, what are some mistakes that associations make when it comes to value proposition, both in how we define it and also how we use it?
Yeah, there's three that come to mind. So when I ask organizations what their value is, most will list all of the services that they offer their members, their magazine, their conference, their standards, their credentials, all their content. And it's often the very first thing you see when you go on a website and you click on Join Now. You see a list of 27 services out there, but a value proposition is not a list of everything you have to offer. It's also not the same as your mission statement, right? If your mission is to advance the profession XYZ, your value proposition is not, we advance the profession. If your mission is to be a standard setter or the credentialing body for a particular trade, the value proposition is not, we set the standards, we hold the certification for, trade XYZ. These are valuable assets and they need to be leveraged, but they are not the core of the value proposition. The mistakes that organizations make is that they define the value proposition from their internal perspective. Rather, you should look at it from the perspective of the target audience. What's in it for them? You always want to take the customer's view when you articulate and you share your value proposition.
And Sean,
Sylvia, do you have any? Oh yeah, I was just going to ask. I mean, when you are working with folks on in terms of the thinking about the customer first, and for a lot of folks on the line, I think they're dealing with potentially more virtual events, the need to be digitally savvy, present something new, or have maybe a reduced footprint on upcoming events. How do you help, or any ideas you might be able to share for how association teams can consider putting that value proposition of the customer towards the customer facing in their product design?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the obvious one, but we have a lot of data that is available to us typically in organizations. Most associations do, a member needs survey, and then that doesn't get leveraged in the way that it could to develop a value proposition, to start looking specifically at what your members value, what feedback they've already provided you. And, you can find all kinds of ways to really have, the ear to the needs of the customer. If it's your members, if it is, again, people who may come to your events or attend, some of your virtual events even, there's all kinds of ways to really get into why and what makes that a value to them. So I think if you start really by paying attention to that, we make the mistakes to define it from, we ask our staff, well, what's our value? We may miss the mark if we do that.
And Sean, just a quick clarification, and thank you to everyone who is chatting. For all of us to see attendees and panelists, make sure you're chatting to all panelists and attendees. But as we talk about the customers, can you clarify in your mind who you consider association customers?
Well, in general, I think associations serve members marketplaces and all the organizations in that universe. So you're talking really about that slide previous. We talked about members, partners, and then sort of that category of potential customers, so people in the industry. You're still, even though you might not be reaching them directly, you are still talking and influencing them. And in terms of PAR, if that question is more around PAR, it would be association teams responsible for revenue production.
Okay. I don't have an exact number in mind, and it depends from one organization to the other. But I've spoken to some associations that tell me that they have 40% of their customers who are non-members, 40% of people who might take their certification, when membership is not required to come to their events. A lot of their chapters will be dealing with non-members. And that, in our mind, requires a unique strategy because, as I mentioned earlier, you see that a lot internationally, where people will not become members, but they will be absolutely very devout consumers of your content, of your events, or your certification, etc. So it's important to think about that tier of customer as well.
I agree.
All right, so
I've had similar experiences.
Let's get right into it, guys. Sylvia has developed for us a recipe here for value proposition. So we have 6 ingredients that we're going to explore one by one about some of the elements that make up a strong value proposition. And if you have that worksheet at home that Sean chatted out, this is where you can follow along here. But the first thing you say, Sylvia, is to demonstrate tangible added value. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So what are people getting out of your organization that adds to their success, that adds to their needs and to their bottom line? Can you pinpoint that? That's the tangible value. Use something that's concrete, that's clear, that's measurable, rather than something that's fuzzy and feel good, where the ROI may be hard to define. You know, in this particular ingredient, the value is really defined as what you enhance, what you augment, what you increase for your customer. If you can increase their profit margin, use that. You know, if, like a lot of medical societies, you can increase their potential customer base because you include them in a searchable registry, position that as your value proposition, because that exposure is very, very valuable to those members. So those are ways to demonstrate tangible added value. And I think we have a good example of an organization that has done that through their membership campaign.
Yeah, so we're going to take, Sean and Sylvia has some great points to share with us all throughout the presentation, but we also wanted to bring in some other voices as well. So we have a video to share with you all to talk a little bit about one organization that is doing just what Sylvia mentioned, demonstrating tangible added value. So let's go ahead and play that. And Sean, once it starts, just give me a thumbs up, make sure we can hear it. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Bill Michelson. I am the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Institute of Internal Auditors. Value proposition is the promise that we make to our customers, and it's important to ensure that value proposition is clear and concise and very much responsive to the needs of the customer. The environment that we're in right now is so noisy. There's so much competition for our time, our energy, and our focus. And now more so than ever, it's important that value proposition continues to be relevant and resilient to the organization's members and customers, because they need us now more so than ever. The value proposition of the IIA is all about elevating impact. We work day in and day out diligently on behalf of our 200,000 members worldwide to ensure that their impact is felt and that it continues to evolve and grow each and every day. Membership Means More is all about members are core to everything that we do as an organization. In fact, it's one of our core values, members first. So it's a unifying concept amongst our staff that helps us stay focused on member needs and how we are responsive and focused on servicing those needs. But it also looks at how our members are able to connect and engage with the brand, as well as the resources and benefits that are exclusive to their membership. It has certainly been beneficial to us as an organization to grow revenue that we are then able to reinvest in services and tools and resources for our members. But it also means more because it's all about their engagement, ways that they can engage with their peers, ways that they can engage with their profession, ways that they can engage with stakeholders, as well as ways they can just tie back to something bigger than themselves, right? Everyone wants to feel like they're contributing to something bigger, and we help facilitate that connection point to ensure that we stay focused on helping them and supporting them, but also helping to support the profession that they feel so passionately about.
All right, so certainly an organization that's doing just what you say there, Sylvia, demonstrating that added value of being members. All right, let's move on to your, okay, I wanted to play it again. Let's move on to your next point, your next ingredient, and that's clarify unique position.
So yes, when an organization is the undisputed, recognized authority, it represents the industry. It's vital to highlight that as your value proposition. Why? Because anyone who is serious about their career, their industry, they will want to associate with the organization. That position in your industry, in your profession is, particularly at the international level, if you are the leading authority globally, it adds value to the member because it elevates their stature, their professionalism, their recognition merely by being affiliated with the premier organization in the field. People will put like, I'm a proud member of XYZ and display that on their business cards or on their websites. They are proud of belonging. So for example, if can you really be a career association executive and not be a member of ASAE, or a professional meeting planner and an events planner and not be a member of MPI, the Meeting Planners Association? So I think we have a slide that shows how MPI has actually used their position to actually clarify why they have such a unique position in this industry. And they leverage it really quite well as the first thing you see when you click on, what they are, who they are, their value proposition. It's a career home. MPI is the world's go-to organization for meeting and event professionals. They're the industry advocates, the voice of the profession around the world. You lead with that. Then you highlight that position as your value proposition first, and the rest will flow. The ROI flows from that. That's the perfect ingredient for a good value proposition.
All right, so ingredient number 2, clarify unique position. Our third topic here is establish a partnership, and that's an important element, Sylvia, in what a value proposition can do.
It really is. A lot of associations increasingly rely on their network to contribute, to create value to the organization. So maybe it's in the form of content, or maybe it's to be advocates for their companies, maybe to promote their standards, or to encourage their teams to become certified. You really need that network to be your partners in your mission. Crowdsourcing, peer reviews. It's important to position yourself and establish that partnership in your value proposition, because it's increasingly about being a community. And associations, organizations serve as curators of the best in class, the knowledge that comes from this community. So positioning the partnership is a strong value proposition in and of itself. Together, we can do a better job advocating. Together, we build content. Together, we create opportunities to learn and exchange with like-minded peers. We need you to share your knowledge, and you need us to provide the forum to do that. So value is derived from being a community where everybody plays a part in sharing knowledge and ideas and leading practices. And so what better way to do that than to ask your members themselves to testify to the value of this community. And here's a great example with it's the International Franchise federation. So all the members are franchisees, and it's interesting because they talk about how they can together improve profits in professional future, empowering their members. So they've clearly defined that. But here's a member testifying saying, if we're experiencing a problem, I turn to IFA because someone has already experienced the problem and figured a way around it. And so that is critical because these tangible solutions are curated from within the organization for the benefit of the entire community. And that's a very strong value proposition.
You see this sometimes inform associations that have very strong value propositions. Many do. But you see this inform their portfolio of options, whether those options are for membership or partnership or those outstanding customers that they're trying to get into the community altogether. So a lot of times you'll see this formula that you're sharing here of testimonial make its way over to other pieces of the association's portfolio in a very successful way. It also, if you think of a bell curve, it helps show folks that, hey, there are other people learning a little bit here. I'm not the first one taking this journey or these first steps. This is something that I can be part of.
Exactly.
All right, so we have so far demonstrate tangible added value, clarify unique position, establish a partnership. Our fourth one that we'll focus on is focusing in on member needs. Sylvia, how is a value proposition able to do that?
Yeah, it's critical. I think we started off talking how important it was to look at the value proposition from the outside in, basing it on feedback from members. You ask them through surveys, you ask them through focus groups, you listen to your vendors, you listen to your sponsor, you listen to your exhibitors when you're interacting with them, and then you work on prioritizing their top reported needs to clearly put that in the forefront of your value proposition. It's often interesting and surprising, but that's why it's so important also to have it very current and frequently look at it and update it because those priorities change.
Yeah, and Sean, associations need to find a way to find out what their members need, whether it be through surveys or other avenues. And I know PAR is in the process of doing that right now, but how important is it for those types of elements to find out what it is exactly that the members are interested in?
I think sometimes, like especially if you guys are working with boards, there's a lot of times where an anecdotal piece of feedback sort of takes you down a rabbit hole and you're wondering, wait a minute, hold on, I don't know if that's valuable to everyone or is that just valuable to your experience? And I think having the ability to kind of balance that out with data is really, really important. And and these days, I think we're learning about different ways to capture data, not just in surveys. Yep, we have a landscape survey right now for PAR, just to kind of understand where the business development landscape looks like. But for most associations, it could just be around a topic that's relevant right now. I love when I see statistics from the organization, and I see a couple of you that I'm seeing on the chats are amazing, like on LinkedIn, sharing relevant industry statistics that are relevant for what your members are going through right now during the pandemic, whether that's constricting commercial space or challenged with meeting with their new customers. If you're in part of your team's non-dues revenue outreach, I can tell you one thing that every customer you're trying to reach is dealing with, and that's how do they remain relevant with their customers. And you have a way to kind of share that both in story and what they need. So you'll be able to align it a little bit more about how they're approaching your market.
All right, so one association that's doing that right now is NAIFA, the National Associations of Insurance and Financial Advisors. And we spoke with them as well about how they focus on their member needs through their value proposition, and here's what they had to say.
Hi, I'm Kevin Mayu. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of NAIFA, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. I guess our value proposition is really crisp and clean and easy. And it's we advocate, educate, and differentiate. So what we did was, of course, we have a strategic plan, and we are relentless about executing on that strategic plan. But part of that process also was talking to our members, finding out again, what do you get out of NAIFA? What things are we doing right? What aren't we doing right? What do you want to see us doing more of? And when it all boiled down to it, it was those three things. And so it really just crystallized around those three buckets. And we said, let's just make it really simple. And let's just talk about we advocate, we educate, we differentiate. And so on the advocacy front, it's really about us working on behalf of our members to make sure that they can operate in the right legislative and regulatory environment so that they can serve their clients, which are Main Street Americans from all across this country. For the educate part, it's really helping giving them the knowledge and the ability so that they can be wildly successful in their career, again, serving their clients and making sure that their futures are financially secured. And then differentiate, it's a way to really stand out, because there's 330,000 advisors that are out there. So we want to make sure the NAIFA members are seen as the top, kind of the peak of the peak. And so with that, we spotlight them and we talk about the great things they do in their community, and we provide them a platform where they can be elevated above their peers. And so we advocate, educate, and differentiate. One, we're active in using social media and other platforms to spotlight our members, to talk about what's going on, to talk about the programs and offerings that we have. So again, advocate, educate, differentiate. We also use that tagline on a lot of things so that it can reinforce us in just 3 key words what we're all about and how we make professionals better at what they do. And then we also sit back and we're active using other sorts of media, earned media, et cetera, to get the message out through trade publications and other things that our members might have access to. So we're active in telling our story and making sure people understand what we do, why we do it, and how being a member of NAIFA is well worth the time and the money that you spend to be part of our association.
All right, so another great example of one association that is putting some of these ideas into practice. All right, so number 5, Sylvia, be exclusively inclusive. What do you mean by that?
Right, so associations must learn to be both inclusive and exclusive. So first, the inclusion part. Advancing diversity and inclusion is key to associations to thrive, to retain talent, increase revenues, gain insights, stay relevant. And so offering access to a very diverse community is a very sound value proposition. For example, if you expand your global footprint, you can create value for your members. That access to a broader network is really, really very, very important. And it's also something that can be very appealing to your advertisers. It can be appealing to your exhibitors who want to network, who want to reach a broader market. So that kind of market diversification is also a sound strategy when you have an economic crisis going on and you do not want to have all your eggs in one basket. So globalizing, as I always talk about, is something that can be very good when you're talking about inclusiveness. But just as important as being inclusive is being exclusive and showing what's important, that for those who choose to belong to the organization, meaning what you're demonstrating is the value that you provide. It's clear, the benefits that are for members only, what is exclusive to those who pay their dues and who have made a commitment to be part of the organization. And so it's helpful to compare and contrast what the different tiers are getting side by side to demonstrate the value maybe of a premier type of membership versus a basic affiliation. And it's really very helpful to do that. And you can apply that to your sponsors as well when you introduce different levels of commitments depending on their contributions, the access that they have. So, a lot of organizations will have the gold, silver, and bronze packages for sponsors. That's a way to show what's exclusive to those who buy into a certain package.
And let's look at one organization that does this, RIMS, the Risk Management Society, how they break down their forms of the benefits of membership.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to show that the organization is both inclusive because there's something in it for everybody, but they're exclusive. They're positioning their products there as these are exclusive services that only those people get who choose to join this particular tier of membership. So it's very helpful in a visual to do that.
And Sylvia and Carolyn, one question that I saw maybe pop up that I think is relevant to this slide is, how do you have one value proposition when you're trying to serve, like if you have a big industry and you're trying to serve multiple different constituent groups, maybe it's students, executives, in this case, I would imagine healthcare, like scientists. How does one value proposition begin to find its way into helping them connect and communicate with each of those audiences? Any ideas?
Well, there is usually a core one. There is a fundamental one that is very important to the organization that eventually emerges as the one that starts to reflect the brand of the organization. But as we've mentioned, there is not one size fits all, and everybody has to look at their industry and their priorities and what they're doing to determine if they should have multiple value propositions. But yes, you will have a different value proposition when you're addressing your partners, if you're looking at those who are investing in the organization from a standpoint of sponsorship or advertisers, then the consumers who are, have different needs. And so you might have multiple value propositions, but very often when you're looking at membership, there's one that emerges as a core one.
We don't have it as an example, but if this helps for some of our attendees listening and viewing today, one of our leadership advisory board groups is the Society for Clinical Research Sites, and they reach four distinct member buckets: pharmaceutical companies, contract sort of project manager teams, sites, research sites, and then the solution provider folks that we've talked about as sort of being partners with the group. And their value proposition is one I really like, because for them, each of these constituency groups have different measures of what's valuable to them, but they lead with site success impacts everyone in research. So it's sort of like taking their why, which is site success, and saying that it's going to impact all of you in research. And when they're able to kind of position their conversations, they're able to position the way they approach marketing and even exhibit environments by using that and kind of making it that one core why, but maybe you have to address it for each constituency you work with. I know for bigger portfolios, for sure, that's an ongoing issue. And to your point, it's good to really just have a core message that you can rely on and sort of build your foundation from.
Great points, guys. As we wrap it up here in terms of our 6 ways that we can build a value proposition, our final one is deliver on a promise. And for associations in particular, Sylvia, how is it that they can do that?
Yeah, this one is really important, right? So we listed them as ingredients, and just like any good recipe, you're welcome to modify the recipe to see what works for you from this list. But this one is often very, very helpful and very important because, the value should be articulated in terms of that commitment. This is the proposition part, the expectation, the promise that the association offers. What outcomes can your members expect? What results, what success? What is it that you will be able to change? What are the enhancements to their business that you can help with? There's a lot of examples in the business world, when we're talking about the promise, delivering on the promise. FedEx guarantees next day service. Pizza Hut promises to deliver within 30 minutes, I think, or your pizza is free. You could show value by guaranteeing access to your exhibitors, access to quality visitors and leads. You can guarantee access to your advertisers, maybe on the magazine circulation, the numbers, the analytics that you can show them will demonstrate that. You can look at maybe the sponsor, how many times their logo will get used in your materials that you are using. So those are examples of the kind of things that you can do to guarantee that you deliver on your promise.
Yeah, and I guess I would say, add to that for those of us who are members of different organizations, it's always nice to get a surprise on that promise. Maybe it's just a little something extra as we go about our day or our work. But for sales folks, for people who are maybe touching on the non-dues revenue side of the house, I think this is one of the hardest areas of value proposition to deliver. And over the course of our career and work, I feel like I struggled with this at times. And if you are like me and you had a lot of different conferences last year that had to pivot really quickly, you were finding yourself having to explain, hey, we have the same valuable audience, but the measure with which you normally judge value has been completely torn apart. And we want you to take this leap of faith with us. I mean, it got to some challenges there where no matter what you did, you maybe are missing the mark on that promise, And so some of the work we've done this month for PAR around value proposition, we discovered there are ways to really influence value, and it might not just be around performance. So when you think of a conference, a lot of people like to be involved with conferences or sell exhibits because, look, you get to the exhibit, you can almost visualize what it's going to be like, and that was, of course, interrupted last year. And so this year you can work through share a successful story from one of the customers you're working with. Tell people what a great marketing campaign looks like. Demonstrate your subject matter expertise to this audience. You can kind of influence the components of value you deliver. It's not just for this promise. It's not just about the ROI and leads. Sometimes it could be about the societal currency of just the prestige of being with your organization really matters to them, or, hey, help them deliver a message in a unique way. These are elements of value that you can actually improve to help raise all boats in the equation. And I thought it was a lot of fun. We got together last week to talk about these components over a quick breakfast, and we learned that some folks are really heavily invested in the emotional side of value. So, and I saw a comment on the thread here about how important that is when you're talking about building out the value proposition. It's absolutely a component. Do your customers, do your members like working with you? Is the transaction easy? Can they visualize what's going to happen next? These are all things that we're learning as an early organization too, and trying to adapt. So I think it's a great rule of thumb, but one that just know if you're like, man, we don't make any promises with what we do, you can improve on some of those promises with what you are efficient at.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, so we've gotten to this point of talking about why it matters, who it serves, the mistakes we make, the ways that we can build it, and hopefully so far everyone has some strong takeaways that they can take from this. But when we talk about the value proposition and knowing what it is, now what? What do we do with it? How do we begin, Sylvia? Who writes it? How do we then use it? What are some things that we need to keep in mind about moving forward once we have some of these tools in place with our value proposition?
Yeah, so I think very quickly, it's clear that you have to do your research, right? You have to first start by getting input, and that's broad input into it. And you have to involve a lot of people for that. You also have to involve the best to then craft your message. And it's a good idea to have multiples and to go out there and maybe even to test them and to see if it resonates. You can, definitely you're going to rely on your marketing team, but you will be working in conjunction connection with different areas of the organizations that are impacted. And you can certainly turn to, experts externally and bring that kind of expertise into the organization and into the process. Keep it simple is really what's important, because why you want everybody on your team to be familiar with it and to be able to speak to the value proposition. And it sort of becomes part of your brand, because you will be using it in many, many different ways, through your social media, your website, your membership campaigns, different brochures that you are pushing out from your sales area, the scripts that you produce for different teams. It needs to be consistently used and well known, and so it has to be simple.
So let's bring up another poll here for our attendees in terms of how are you using your value proposition. So let me go ahead and launch that. So how do you use your value proposition? And you can check all that apply in your association. So is it prominently posted on your website and social media? It's an essential part of marketing strategy and campaigns. It's used in all sale efforts. It's used in communications to recruit and retain members and customers. It's used to differentiate us from our competitors. We use our customers and members to share our value proposition, or perhaps you aren't adequately using your value proposition. So go ahead and take some time to reflect on that and let us know, and we can share those results to give everyone an idea of how others attending today are making do with their value proposition. Lot to choose from. Looks like the votes are coming in, and we'll give it just another minute. All right. All right, so for those of you who voted, here are the results. So it looks like 20% of you say that you're prominently using it on the website, social media. 30% say it's an essential part of marketing. 40% say it's used in sale efforts. 10% say it's used in recruiting and retaining members and customers. 20% of you say it differentiates you from competitors. Another 20% saying you're using it, your customers and your members, to share your value proposition. And then half of you say that you aren't adequately using your value proposition. So, Sean, your thoughts on that?
I totally understand. I think one of the challenges for us as association teams, I once heard someone say that it's easier to broker world peace than it is to get marketing and sales to talk to each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, are we that challenging? And I thought about that for a minute. I think a lot of times a mistake that we make as association teams is that we lean on the value proposition instead of leading with it. And it almost changes your mindset when you talk about does our association's value proposition lead the industry, and where can it help inform and lead the products that we're building? That's really what I think. When you think about 50% of us aren't adequately using our value proposition, I think it's just an opportunity for us to have those conversations with our marketing teams, with our membership teams, with our board, to better understand and inform them about why that value proposition is so important.
So let's look at one applicable way, one simple way that folks today can talk about a formula for a value proposition. Sylvia, take us through this simple formula just to help people get started with value proposition.
Yeah, it can be very simple, and it's a good place to start to just understand even the components that would be part of it. And that worksheet that we provided is helpful. It's something that you can at least review what you currently have and see if any of the ingredients we talked about today are part of it and what you're missing. So I encourage you to start simple.
All right, so you all have shared wonderful feedback on value propositions and how associations can start to frame their own. but I think it's only fair that we share with everyone joining us today your own value propositions for your own organizations, what they are, and the process that brought you to those value propositions. So Sylvia, for CultureWiz, what do you have for us?
Yes, well, I run a consultancy practice for nonprofits and associations that go international, that want to expand their markets and their membership and their operations to foreign markets. So what is our best value? Well, we asked our customers, and what we learned is that this is often complex. It's confusing when they go global because there's a lot of options to consider. And so first of all, the priorities we know are diverse. We offer a lot of different things, and they range from transforming operations to adapting products and services for global audiences, building strategies to open new markets, such as due structures for international memberships, as well as the training of staff volunteers for diversity, inclusion, and sort of the cultural and global mindset. So we put that in there because we wanted that to be front and center. Many associations, really many US-based organizations, they lack the fundamental knowledge to globalize. And so going alone, they make mistakes that are costly, that create delays, and worse, may even make them look bad culturally. So the main value for us was that partnership, that we can make it easier for them to go global. That's what we heard. We want you to make it easier for us. So we facilitate globalization, we make it easier, and our promise on that value is conveyed by the positioning that it's a journey. It's not a destination, because we want to make a commitment to be a reliable partner and a resource, not just during the engagement, but even afterwards. So that's what we put into our value proposition.
So definitely utilizing those ingredients that we just went through. And Sean, how about for the Professionals for Association Revenue? As a new association, your process in developing a value proposition?
Sure. I think it's important to point out, this page is that you're showing is it has our mission statement on there, which is improving revenue growth for association professionals through knowledge, resources, and community. But that's not necessarily our value proposition, because like some of you have shared today, our audiences are a little different. What that means to a membership director is completely different than what it might mean to an operations person. So for us, we got together just because there was so many there's so many wonderful association folks doing some really cool growth-minded work out there, and we thought it'd be great to be able to share that, talk about the challenges we have. So we kind of let that inform who we were talking to and why that might be valuable to them. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and had us have to respond to that a little bit. But right now, our value proposition goes a little something like this. We prioritize association business growth. PAR prioritizes association business growth, and our community delivers the ideas and resources association revenue producers need to compete and grow now and next. And if I was following our formula, we do this by providing really growth-focused content, live peer support, and events that are driven specifically for association business development.
Sounds great. All right, so your two value propositions, I think you both utilize some of those ingredients. And as we come up on the end of our time, we only have about a minute left. But if there's any pressing questions anyone wants to get in real quick, you can chat to us now. We'll also, be accessible through email as well if there's additional.
I'll tell you what, everyone, just know you can find Sylvia and I and Carolyn on the mypar.org website. So if you have a question, and we're out of time, of course, and want to be mindful of yours, but you can certainly send it to us. We're happy to help or steer you in the right direction. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Carolyn and Sylvia, for an amazing presentation. I learned a lot working with you, Sylvia, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you for being part of today's webcast.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it tremendously as well. I hope everybody takes a chance 2021. Look at your value proposition. It can have an impact.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, and thank you, everyone, again, for joining us and taking the time. Hopefully, we'll see you on our next webcast, and look for an email from us tomorrow. We'll send out a recording as well as the slides from today. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elle.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.